Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Darrow here with another options and play video update. We are into the heart of earnings season, and this week should be wild. Uh, it started off a little bit slower Monday before the open, only a couple key or bigger names reporting, but that's really going to change over the next 3 to 4 sessions. So, um, without further ado, this is the earnings on the radar for the biggest week of earnings this quarter. All right, tonight NXPI about 7 points is what they're looking for. It, you know, it the best performing chip stocks this past week were the ones that didn't report. So AMD and Taiwan Semi. NXPI, another kind of high profile name given earnings, and I think the only way I'd view it is from a longer term perspective. Earnings have been kind of less of events recently on this one, and semis. I feel like they're really struggling to get paid for solid quarters. So I think anything I would do would be a longer term view, not necessarily an earnings trade on it. For the open tomorrow, we have a couple industrials, some restaurants, got all sort of mix of like S&P 500 type names. 3M, 7 points is what's expected on this. Pretty interesting setup. Been in a tight range. Seems like expectations pretty low. It does look bullish to me, and it popped last quarter, even though results weren't clean. That was kind of a theme last quarter. I was thinking it could run ahead of time, and that's starting to play out. So I feel like if you're in it before, it might be an opportunity to scale back risk. If not, maybe something speculative on the upside because it does seem like if it can put together a good report, it's right at the top of kind of like a year downtrend, and it could be interesting, especially because it's coming out of a consolidation too. So just want to keep an eye on. McDonald's 6.5 points is what's expected on that. Always seems like a tough stock to me. I just, I don't like the way the restaurants are acting. I mean, that's really the best way for me to describe it. Minus a couple. There's a couple real great names and a lot that aren't. I guess, and what it comes down to is that the numbers just, for the most part, just are not good. They're borderline bad, or they are bad, and the stocks just don't get hit. Same time, they don't really go up either. So option pricing to me, it doesn't seem too high, but I also really don't know what to make of it, and I haven't had a whole lot of success with this in the past, so I think I'm just going to leave it alone. Pfizer, $1.75. So two big pharma names, kind of similar ideas for me this week. It's been getting a ton of attention because of the COVID vaccine, but earnings, right? So you got earnings this week, and last quarter was decent. The stock didn't do a whole lot. It is getting up close to like this April May high area, and you got momentum from the vaccine. Maybe if the numbers are good, maybe it can kind of push it back up through like 39. Maybe put it on a path to 40. But it still seems like for this and AstraZeneca later in the week, I mean it's all about the vaccine news. So I feel like those are going to basically trump anything earnings related this week. After the close on Tuesday, now we're getting to some tech names. AMD, 6.5 points. It's about what's expected on this. So last week when it was in the 50s was a lot different setup than when it's in the high 60s. So just completely different pattern. I don't know what to do with it earnings wise because the jump off of Intel definitely altered the expectations. A lot higher bar now, and that really hasn't been a good recipe in this market. Really, really sharp pops, high expectations into earnings. It has led to some sell the news type moves. So maybe what I'll do is just wait and see what the numbers are like, see what the stock does, see if it can hold on to gains post earnings, and then look at it maybe for like a swing trade after. eBay. So 385 is what's priced in on this. So it popped earlier in June off of preliminary results. Had a big run since then. I typically avoid stocks that guide early, and I'm probably going to stick with that here. It is a pretty nice trading stock though, so I'll keep an eye on it after the numbers come out. Starbucks, another restaurant stock that doesn't really make much sense to me. 375 is what's priced in. Very, very, very similar to McDonald's, although it is weaker from an overall perspective. They just gave a warning in June, though, so I do think the upside might be capped. Stock has been fairly range bound. Options aren't cheap enough to get me interested, so I don't think I'm going to do anything specifically earnings related to this. Visa, so kind of an interesting one here. 6.5 points is what's priced in. Um, I, I don't love the option pricing, but I do think the setup is interesting because it's really come back a long ways, and it's been in a relatively tight consolidation. I think it's going to be a pretty big quarter, kind of like a make or break quarter for this and MasterCard because they have really outperformed other credit card stocks. So I think they need to deliver. Um, I do think that this is maybe one of the better volatility strategy candidates next week, so I might look at it for that. Before the open on Wednesday, we have Afria. So first cannabis stock to report. Chart looks okay. Priced in about 90 cents. Um, it is up a decent amount today, but when you look at it from a longer term perspective, it does seem like it's trying to turn the corner and break this multi-year downtrend. So could be some more room on that one. Boeing. Boeing. What do you do with Boeing, right? 11 points is what's priced in on Boeing. Earnings really haven't been big catalysts on this recently, and I just don't know if that's going to change this quarter. Airlines haven't had huge moves on earnings. This seems like a very similar chart to those. I guess I'd almost just prefer to wait for it to get back above 200. At least then I know that there's some momentum behind it, some buying interest. So I think I probably won't do anything for earnings on this personally. Shopify, about 86 to 88 points is what's priced in. Expectations seem ridiculously high on this. Option pricing through the roof. This seems like a very tough setup, and it could be a premium burner, so most likely an avoid for me. Spotify, 25 points is what's priced in on this quarter. It's been a monster since those April results. We had a couple awesome trades on this since April actually, and I'm not really sure what to do with it this quarter because they've really been ramping up their podcasting side of the business, but the numbers actually weren't a blowout in April, and expectations are a lot higher now. Um, so what I guess I'll probably end up doing is focusing on it after, maybe, like because the swing trades there was just some great opportunity for swing trades after the last earnings report, and because I'm on the fence with it and the option pricing is a little bit higher, I think if it does, if it does not do a whole lot post earnings, might be another one where I step right in quickly for a swing trade. So thinking like longer term bull though. After the close on Wednesday, Facebook. So about 15 and a half, give or take, is what's priced in. So this will be the first of the tech heavyweights. Should be interesting too because much well, just been so much news on Facebook over the past 2 months, and to me it seems like the expectations are kind of all over the map. Um, of any of the big names next week, this one seems like it still has potential to move up or down. Some of the other ones, it seems like more of the risk is lower, but Facebook, I guess, could kind of go either way to me. But um, option pricing is high, and I guess that's what makes me a little bit more cautious because it's really going to have quite a move above 15 and a half to really reward options. So I think it's one you need conviction with. I think you need to be directional on it. And I'm kind of on the fence, but might be more of a game time decision. Lamb. So 25 points is what's priced in on this. Definitely one of the better performing semis heading to earnings, and actually kind of like a fairly similar chart to ASML, which reported 2 weeks ago. Numbers been pretty consistently solid on this, so I'd be expecting more of the same. Biggest issue I have is that are good numbers priced in, right? Because I mean, they've been so consistent. Stock has had a pretty big run. Option pricing is also kind of high, so this might be one I avoid. PayPal. Speaking of huge runs and potentially priced in, 12.5 points is what they're looking for on PayPal. Just has not stopped since the May report, and it seems like expectations on this are just through the roof. Um, we've traded Square a lot recently, and I think there's a chance that it could be a solid sympathy candidate for PayPal's report. So I think I might look at Square as a trade idea off of this PayPal number. Qualcomm. So 5.25 is what's priced in on Qualcomm. Another big semi. It was in a pretty tight consolidation under its 52-week high. It's still kind of in that ballpark. Looks solid overall, but it really hasn't been much of a mover since last November's earnings report. Um, I do think if it's good and it can get up through 94, 95, it could be a really nice breakout candidate. But it's more like ifs. It hasn't had like that huge move in a while. But I mean, it's one that seems to have potential, but it's also to me more speculative on the bull side. ServiceNow, 30 points is what's priced in on this. Definitely one of the big software reports, if not the biggest software report next week. We know Shopify, but this NOW probably moves more things versus Shopify. Um, I guess I'm really just interested in this mostly to see how high expectations are and what the stock does, how the stock reacts, because there's actually a lot of similar patterns to NOW in the software space. It just really has not had a sustained pullback, and I mean, they have consistently crushed it the past few quarters. But again, what's expected, what's priced in, because options aren't cheap, and I think a lot of people are expecting good numbers. So again, I think I'm going to just be more interested in what they say, maybe not necessarily doing an earnings trade on it specifically. Before they open on Thursday, so AstraZeneca. So I was talking about Pfizer. AstraZeneca priced in 2.5 points, but it seems kind of similar to me as Pfizer. Most of the interest in this probably is the vaccine related. So even though earnings were solid last quarter, I do think that what really going to move the needle for the stock is anything vaccine, and we're probably going to have to wait like a month, 2 months out for anything on that. So something longer dated, maybe a calendar idea could be the way to approach that. MasterCard. So Visa before and now MasterCard after. 11 points is what's priced in on this. It's definitely going to move off the Visa number, so I'm not sure what to expect when MasterCard actually reports. It's really going to be dependent upon how much it pops or drops off that Visa number, so this is going to be kind of like a wait and see. UPS. So 6.5 points is what's priced in on this. FedEx gave this a really big boost when it reported. Now it's going to have its own turn to see how the numbers are. It is bumping up into some pretty big yearly resistance, though. If the numbers are good, it could have a path to like the mid 20s, maybe even more. The biggest question mark around UPS is whether or not it's going to move because it's not a consistent big mover. And option pricing is not cheap by any means. But again, interesting pattern. FedEx just had a really strong report. If the numbers are good or even surprisingly good, it does seem like one that has the potential, but the uncertainty lies to me more around is it going to move or not. Thursday after the bell. So this is the night. First things, we'll start off with Google. 80 points is what they're looking for on this one. Um, Facebook the night before, so Google's is most likely going to react to that, and probably going to set the bar. So I feel like it's you know kind of like Visa and Mastercard. You kind of have to wait and see how much Google reacts to Facebook, and then see where it is and see what the options are pricing in, and then you can figure out if there's actually a trade on it, right? So I'm on the fence with it. Definitely going to be more of like a game time decision for me on that one. Amazon. So 112 points is what they're looking for on Amazon. Um, so I think I think this setup this quarter is very tough. Just based off how last quarter played out, because it had a huge run into earnings last quarter and then missed and guided lower due to higher spending. It had another absolutely massive run ahead of this earnings, and I think expectations are very, 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 very high for Amazon. Whereas and last quarter they already told you, they warned that they were going to be spending. So you know, so not 112. They're pricing in. Excuse me, not 112. They're pricing in 212. Sorry, I said 112. 212. Um, it has been a great swing trading name, but this report, I think if I did play it, it would probably be something low debit on the downside, just to see if it follows a similar pattern as last quarter. Because like Netflix, followed a very similar pattern into earnings, and then after earnings. Amazon had followed a very similar pattern to what it did last earnings report. Now you see if it follows what it did after the earnings report, right? So I don't know if I'm going to do anything with it, but if I did, I might actually be more interested in the bear side on it. Apple, 18.5 points is what's expected on Apple. And this setup changed materially over the last week. It's at 400, it seemed like the expectations were just sky high, and the stock seemed to me to be like in a void. There've been a couple of negative analyst notes now. Stock has been hit hard off the high, so I think definitely better pattern going into earnings. Apple beat a lower bar last quarter. The problem is that the bar seems higher this quarter after the way the stock has moved. So it's the option pricing is on the high end, and expectations are higher, although definitely a little bit better than where it was when I was trading around 400. I think you need conviction with this. I think you have to be directional. It's either negative or positive, and I think you need. I think a little bit of extra time might be the way to approach this, because I don't know if it's going to have a huge immediate movement off of earnings, but Apple's one that tends to get follow through like the week after, so it definitely could be one where you need to be directional and you need a little bit extra time. EA. So 7.5 points is what's priced in on this. First of the gaming stocks to report, and it's actually the only one this week. So that creates a sympathy trade on Activision or Take-Two. They're all acting strong, and they're at or near their 52-week highs. Activision, I'd say, probably more closely correlated with EA, so I might go with those options. Expedia, 825 is what's priced in on this. This and the travel related stocks just kind of stuck in lower ranges. Last quarter wasn't a huge catalyst for the stock, and the chart doesn't look bad. Got this consolidation going, but I'm just not sure it's going to be a huge mover because most travel is still really down year over year. Maybe more of a game time decision for me, but because I actually do like trading this around earnings, but I'm not convinced it's worth laying out the money this quarter based off of how these travel related stocks have acted so far in the first couple weeks. Melly, 62 to 65 points. Option spread's a little bit wider than that. Just massive move since last quarter's earnings. Stock is up 450 points since then. It's right at its 52-week high. The chart looks very strong, and I imagine the numbers are going to be good, but I really don't know how much it's priced in at this point. Also, this company can be a little bit more choppy based off of like the currency fluctuations. So, this to me might be a better swing trade post earnings than an actual earnings trade. Shake Shack. So 5.25 is what they're pricing in here. Gave some preliminary sales a couple weeks ago that were downbeat, but stock just didn't want to break down. It's the story of the restaurant names. They're just such a tough group because the numbers stink, but the stocks don't go down. They also don't go up. Shack has had a couple quarters in the past where they've really moved, but following my rule. Don't like to trade stocks that have that give preliminary guidance, so probably going to be just keeping away from this. And also, Xilinx, 6 points is what's priced in, but they also gave preliminary numbers. I do think the chart looks good, but again, following my rule, probably going to be avoiding this one too. Okay, wrapping things up on Friday morning. AbbVie, so 375 is what's priced in on this. Definitely one of the better performing pharma names at the moment. Bumping up into this big 100 level. Had a beat and raise quarter in May, so I'd be expecting another solid quarter. Really, I feel like the trade revolves around whether or not it gets to 100, because if it does, it could be decent upside. So might be worth something speculative, maybe a lower debit on the bull side, just to see if it can get up and get through 100. CAT, 6 points is what's priced in on this. Definitely a big industrial report, but it missed and guided lower in April, and the stock is at its best level in months. Right, really consistent history of disappointing. So whether that's missing on the quarter, guidance, they just very consistently disappoint. So I'd be more focused on the bear side if I did anything with it. Not a stock I've had a whole lot of success with though, but based off of history, I'd be probably more net negative on this. All right, I'm gonna lump Chevron, which is pricing in 375, and Exxon, which is pricing in $1.80 together. So Chevron, first off, I don't really know what to make of these two. Chevron's been a little bit better recently because it just did that Noble deal. But neither, to me, seem very compelling at the moment. I've been watching the energy space. I haven't done a lot with it over the last 2 months. This might be one of those areas where I just wait to see what the numbers are, see what the stocks do, and see if there's, if it's worth putting on a swing trade. Because earnings-wise, I don't have like a really strong opinion on them, and I don't think the setups are particularly great either. All right, and then rounding things out, Under Armour. So $1.30 is what the pricing in on this. I will say it's a pretty interesting spot for Under Armour, right at the top of 3 to 4 month resistance, through most near-term moving averages. Obviously, it's lagged Nike for a ton of reasons, or multiple reasons, maybe not a ton, but multiple reasons. But I do think the bar is pretty low on this, and it could be a decent speculative bull idea, especially if you have a slightly longer time frame, because the chart seems to be setting up, and if they can just clear that lower bar, there might be some room to run on this. So an interesting one for sure. And that's it. So obviously you don't need me to tell you, but it's just going to be a crazy few days coming up. Day after day after day, big names. So a lot to look forward to. Now, if you like this video and you're looking for earnings trade ideas or swing trade ideas with options, please follow up with the link in the description of the video for more information on options and play. Have a great night. Best of luck if you guys are playing any of these. Stay well, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.